Since 1887, the Stonington Free Library has been a center for knowledge, ideas, creativity, and entertainment. It is a comfortable and welcoming community space for the town of Stonington, Connecticut, where all ages can explore, discover, gather, and learn within a building of distinctive and unique architecture. This video program is an evolution to expand the offerings of the library to share directly in your home or organization. Welcome to the Thoughtful Thursdays speaker series, made available to you by the Stonington Free Library.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Michaela Hall. I'm the director of the library. I want to thank you all for being here and give special thanks to Jean Baur for presenting this program and for all the work she's put into it. And to also thank all the staff and volunteers for their support in organizing this event. We ask that everyone please just keep your microphones muted unless we ask you to turn them on, and this will just minimize disruption during the presentation. If you have any questions throughout the meeting, please type them in the chat. We will have some interactive portions of the presentation where Jean will ask for some input. So please just type in the chat to answer, and then all other questions will be answered when we open up the Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we'll let you unmute at that time as well. And I am recording the program, but all personal information such as names of participants will be edited out before it's uploaded to our YouTube channel. And now to introduce our speaker tonight, Jean Baur is a dynamic speaker who knows how to inspire audiences to maximize their potential. She draws on her diverse background as an author and a career coach to reveal symptoms that cause burnout, and she helps empower her audience to be the boss of their own lives and careers, and helps realize there are always choices. During the current pandemic, she has adapted many of her workshops into Zoom presentations, keeping them interactive, upbeat, and practical. She has spoken to organizations across the country, including the Association of Career Professionals International, nonprofit organizations, public libraries like tonight, and the Assisted Living Federation of America. Jean lives in Stonington. She is a great friend of the library and gives back to the community in her volunteer work with her therapy dog, Rudy, who we all know and love here. Let's welcome Jean Baur. Take it away, Jean.
All right. Thanks, Michaela. Thanks, Carla. It's wonderful to be here. And it's nice to have a small, cozy group. So as was already mentioned, please ask questions anytime. Just either raise your hand or do chat. I can't see that with my slides up, but Michaela and Carla can. And then I think the more interactive this is, the better. So if something doesn't make sense or you have a question, please ask. So what's the biggest trap in looking for work? Really, that most job seekers focus only on the published job market. And the problem with that is there's way too much competition. It's time consuming. You don't get any feedback. You're often forced to reveal your salary and your age. It's hard to find the perfect fit. And you'll see how this really becomes a big focus of our session this evening. You're not reaching the hiring manager. And by that, I mean the person who would be your boss, that decision maker. So let me just read you a quick page from my first book, which is called Eliminated Now What? And at the end of every chapter, I wrote these do's and don'ts just to help kind of summarize. And this chapter is called Beware the Information Age. So here's a few of the do's. Do become familiar with the best internet sites. Ask people in your field which ones they found particularly helpful. Second, post your resume on several sites to give yourself wide visibility. Third, use the power of the internet to do in-depth research on the companies you're interested in. Go beyond their websites, because if there's negative or controversial information, it won't be on their website. Fourth, as you create your daily schedule, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, set aside specific times when you surf the internet so that online searching doesn't eclipse other efforts. And lastly, on the do's, use the services of a reference librarian in your public library, because it's so easy to get stuck. And I think really since the internet became such a huge force in our lives, people forget that we have these wonderful librarians who know how to find information. And then a few don'ts. Don't spend all your time going from site to site. Don't confuse the ease of finding information with what works. And lastly, don't let the seduction of the internet, all those jobs posting, lull you into believing that this is how you get your finger on the pulse of the job market. It's a good source, but it's only one source. So shouldn't you just keep trying? I love this visual because this is what it feels like, both on both sides of the job market, sometimes both as the applicants and as the recipient. You feel just sort of buried in paperwork and buried in trying. And I think it's so frustrating and so demoralizing when you don't get anything back. And even when you see something that you know is a perfect fit, you know, if you don't get a response, it's very discouraging. So why is it often too late when you see an online posting? First of all, the company may have internal candidates. Everyone else in the field, in your field, sees it too. Your resume gets lost in the sauce. This is a tricky one. Postings may be incomplete or inaccurate. Many companies reuse old job postings, and HR may not be really keeping them up to date with what that hiring manager wants. So essential pieces might be missing, or there may be pieces there that really aren't relevant anymore. It's very easy to be ignored or rejected when you're answering an online post. And you have to match at least 85 to 90%. Most career coaches will say even higher than 90. And I can't remember if Michaela said this, but I worked as a career coach for 20 years for major outplacement firms. And that's really where I got my career coaching background. And so, you know, if you're at 60%, it's probably not going to help you to get an interview. And again, this is our theme song for tonight. You're not reaching the decision maker. So is there really an unpublished job market? Is there some other ways to look for work? And the answer is yes. Jobs are filled without being advertised all the time. When I used to teach classes in person, I would always say, how many of you got a job, you know, just through networking, through a connection, through a referral? And a lot of people will raise their hands. Managers obviously like to hire people they know. This is a comfort level for them. It costs money and time to sort through resumes and interview candidates. But the organization, of course, has to have a need and a budget for you to hit the bullseye. So we're going to pause here for a minute, and I'm going to tell you about a client named Bob. I have his permission to talk about him, but I won't give you his last name. And he was my client way back in about 2010 when I was writing my first book, Eliminated Now What? And it occurred to me that I'd been a career coach for a long time, but I hadn't been looking for work in a long time. So it occurred to me it was a good idea to have some of my clients write a chapter for my book. So Bob, I want to just read you from just a few paragraphs from what Bob wrote. And his chapter is called Courage and Persistence. So this is what Bob wrote. Probably it was around 2008 because the book was published in 2010. So Bob wrote, I've applied for a lot of positions and had a reasonable number of phone and face-to-face interviews. But what I found is that I'm primarily applying for the same position as everyone else, and the competition is fierce. It's an employer's job market right now. We know what 2008 was like, right? And they're being very selective. So in the competitive arena, it's important to be as close a fit to the job description as possible. Differentiate yourself from the competition and be as compatible with their culture as you can be. Now, here's his very tricky sentence. What's intuitively obvious, but obviously elusive, is finding unadvertised positions. For those, the competition will be limited or non-existent. The best way to find such opportunities is through networking, which for many of us, including Bob, is akin to dental extraction. So for Bob, he'd rather have his tooth pulled out than network. That is honestly the way he felt about it. And then he goes on to write, by networking, you might just stumble across someone who knows someone who needs someone, but hasn't really formalized the position just yet. Having a discussion with that someone may help them to write a job description around exactly what you have to offer. So here it is, 2008. Bob had been with one company for 25 years. He'd lost his job. Then he came to me. I was his career coach in the outplacement firm. And I worked with him for about a year, and he had a great resume. He had good interviewing skills. He would not network. He would not talk to people. He would not reach out. And he was getting really frustrated. He got a temporary position for about 6 months. His program with me ended, but we stayed in touch. And then he wrote me this email a few years later telling me that he was feeling a little frisky, and he decided to try writing directly to the executive vice president of a firm who had written an article, who was in his same field, which was facilities management. So long story short, Bob emails this guy thinking, this is what Jean told me to do all those months ago, and I wouldn't do it. And he's also thinking it's not going to work. And lo and behold, the same day, excuse me, this man comes back to him and says, hey, your background sounds really interesting. And he didn't send his resume. So then the executive vice president asks for his resume. He sends it back and forth, back and forth. They have lunch, good fit. And then there's kind of a dead silence for a while. And Bob has to go to Japan because his son is getting married to a nice young Japanese woman in Japan. So he writes to the man and says, I'm going to be out of the country for a few weeks. I'll check with you when I come back. When he comes back, he reconnects and he asks the executive vice president, what's going on? And this gentleman gets back to Bob and says, would you like to work in Asia? Now, this cracked me up because Bob had never been out of New Jersey, let alone out of the country. And he said, well, what are you thinking? And he said, well, I have a 6 to 9 month position in Singapore. And you're fit. Yeah, you're a perfect fit. And then that would turn into a position in New Jersey afterwards. So Bob says, well, I better ask my wife because that's a long time to be going from home. So Bob asks his wife and comes back and tells me, Jean, it was the funniest thing. I asked her what she thought, and she said, well, we're getting to be the age where one of us is going to end up living alone anyway, so let's try it. So this was very funny. And so Bob tries it, and he's an absolute hit. He learns how to eat in all these crazy noodle shops, and he loves Singapore, and that turns into a position in New Jersey. So this is a long roundabout way of saying networking is really important. And I was so thrilled that Bob finally got over the hump and did it. So how big is this market that we're talking about, the unpublished job market? And the answer is nobody knows. But many career counselors think that it's at least half. So there's my half and half thing. So when we look at how jobs are found, there's basically 4 ways. You can answer ads. Now, of course, they're all online. You can go through agencies, employment agencies, or recruiters, networking, as in Bob's story, or targeting, which we'll get to, which is going directly to a hiring manager. So we're not going to take the time to do this. And this is, by the way, in your handouts. But I would strongly suggest that when this program is over, and you're back working on your search, that you create this kind of little chart for yourself to remind yourself of where you're spending your time. So of these 4 methods of looking for work, and this is where you can unmute yourself and just shout out, it's fine, or put it in chat. Which of these 4 gets the big blue chunk of the pie? Anybody have yeah, so yeah. Can we unmute? I can't unmute anybody. Carla, can you unmute whoever that is? I can't see her name. Did you see her hand up? I don't think she's unmuted. Let me see if I can click on, can I click on that?
I think it's Tina and she's unmuted.
Yes, okay. I'm unmuted now. Yes. Number 3, networking.
Yeah. So the big piece of the pie is networking. Very good. Great. So who wants to have a guess at what the red piece is, the next biggest piece? Ads, agencies and recruiters, or targeting? Anybody have a, and this is just in general. This may not be true for your search, but just in sort of in general.
I'll take a guess. Targeting.
Yeah, now, that's a good guess, and it would be true if it was my search, but actually ads are probably the next biggest piece, and then recruiters and targeting are the smaller pieces. But really, what you should do is make a pie chart based on the actual numbers of what's making your phone ring for it to be accurate. But this is just sort of a visual to show that if you're not networking, that which is that big blue piece, you're missing a big hunk of the job market. That's really the point of this. And the numbers, we used to throw around all these numbers. 75% of jobs are found through networking. Well, I could tell you a gazillion stories that would prove that wrong, but this visual at least gives you sort of a compass to say, how am I spending my time? What should I be doing that will get me to the hiring manager? So on your own, and you have this in your handouts, maybe just play around with this pie chart and see what methods are working for you. Any questions on this before we move on? We're good? Yeah. So I don't think, the actual, was there a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask what you meant by targeting.
We're going to get there. You're right ahead of me. Maybe she knew that. So when, we're going to answer the when question before we get to targeting. When do you want to reach them? Obviously, just before they recognize a need, as they launch a new project, before they advertise. That's dreamy because there isn't all that competition. When they get a budget approved. But how can you figure this out? And the answer is you often can't, but it's still the most productive part of your search. So in other words, as we focus our job searches around trying to reach that decision maker, that hiring manager, that person who would be our boss, there's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know when they're going to recognize a need or launch a new project. I mean, some of this you can find out, but maybe not. So some of this is kind of luck. And again, it's an interesting thing in the career counseling field that people never talk about luck. It's sort of a dirty word. We don't talk about luck. We just talk about but yeah, there is some luck because you hit that person at the right time. So to make luck work for you, you've got to do enough work that you're reaching out to enough people that somebody's going to have one of these going on.
It's like playing the lottery.
Exactly. Yeah, which I don't do.
And if you don't play, you can't win. So
that's right. Yeah. And my husband waits until until it's like $3 gazillion and then he buys one ticket. And I'm like, oh, okay, there goes $2. But then he has a wonderful fantasy about how he's going to spend it. So, it's good for a laugh. So how do we find out? And this again is something that, you guys can chime in. How do we find out? Let's say, excuse me, that I wanted to work at Mystic Seaport. And let's say I'm in finance, which I'm not. How would I find out who's in charge of the financial area at Mystic Seaport? How would I find that out? Anybody want to just throw out an idea here?
Well, first I'd go to LinkedIn just because it's on my computer. And then I think I would go to their webpage and I would look under their investor relations section and I download an annual report.
Yeah, so maybe the annual report, LinkedIn, great. Again, we've talked about the reference librarian is a great resource, but let's say you've tried everything and you've Googled them and you've searched and searched and you just can't find that out. What I then do is call. And this is when I put on my very friendly voice. So I call it my Girl Scout voice. And I call and I say, oh, good morning. This is Jean Baur. I was just calling to find out who the head of finance is at the Seaport. And if I'm asked, why are you calling? I don't necessarily identify myself as a job seeker because that can then cause the gatekeeper to close the gate. I just said, well, I have information that I think they'd find useful, which is true. And 9 times out of 10, you're not asking for a company secret. You'll find out who that person is. And then you can get their email. And now you have a person who then you would want to target. So just try different methods. I had a client once who told me this was absolutely impossible. And I said, okay, come into my office, bring me the name, bring me the phone number. I'll call, I'll put it on speakerphone. And I was transferred 4 times, but I got the name. So polite, persistent, you can get it. So let's pause here for a minute and talk about your competitive edge, because this is so important in job search, whatever field you're in, whether it's me as a career coach or someone else in finance or someone else in nursing or somebody else in marketing. What makes you special? What are some, so take a minute, and this is, again, is on your handouts on page 2, I believe. You can jot them down there or just on a piece of paper, but let's just take a half a minute for you to jot something down, and then I'm going to ask you to share just a couple of words that describe your top strengths. And then I'm going to see if I can hear from someone I haven't heard from yet. So is there somebody I haven't heard from who could, because I can't see everybody. I'm sorry, my slide takes up too much space. Somebody we haven't heard from who'd like to say, just share a couple of the top strengths? I can see a few people rolling their eyes. That's fun. Yeah, good. Yeah, I can't unmute you, but maybe can you unmute yourself, or can you do it, Carla? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was just thinking that I'm as I stumble over my words here, I'm an excellent communicator.
Good.
And I have very good writing skills.
Yeah.
And I'm experienced in my profession.
Which is what?
Which is filmmaking.
Filmmaking. Okay. Yeah. So strong verbal speaking skills, strong written, and in filmmaking. And we'll see, this is for everybody, the piece that kind of comes after this, but we got to start with, okay, what are we selling, right? Anybody else want to go? Got any other, oh, I can hear the train.
I'll go.
Yeah, yes.
So I would say that I'm extremely creative, organized, and excellent with relationship building.
Good. So creative, organized, relationship building, fantastic. So again, all of these are going to need the backup piece, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. But it's just good to know, as what it is that distinguishes you from other filmmakers or other career counselors or other librarians or other whatever you do. What is it that makes you special? And I used to have a lot of trouble with some of my clients, especially when I was teaching classes, because they would always say to me, but Jean, I don't want to brag. I don't want to boast. And I'm like, no, this isn't bragging. It isn't boasting. It's just that we're not comfortable about this, because when we're at work, we don't have to do it. When we're in job search, we have to be able to articulate, this is who I am. This is what I'm good at. And then we have to provide the proof piece, which we're going to get to. So the more you do this, the easier it gets to just say, as a filmmaker, I'm known for my ability to X, Y, and Z. That really helps. All right. So here is a great way to pitch yourself. And I'll tell you a little bit about the background of this target email after we go through it. So dear so-and-so, so this is not a one size fits all, and this is not a blast. This is a very specific target email going to the person that you found out who's head of finance at the seaport, right? So dear John Smith. So here's 2 beginnings, and obviously you're going to get rid of the little notes that are in parentheses. Those are just there to help you use this format. If you need an accountant with expertise in nonprofits and something or other, we should talk. Or another beginning, as an accountant with more than 15 years. Now, if you're up in the 20, 25 years of expertise, just change that to extensive experience. Don't give away how old you are. So just as an accountant with extensive experience in nonprofits, something or other, I know that I could be a profitable addition to your company. Some people don't like the word profitable, especially if you're talking in like education. So change it to valuable, change it to anything else you want. So this is just a format, and you will fix it so that it says what you need it to say. But it's a pretty neat format. So then you're going to prove it. So for example, in my position as lead accountant at a large manufacturing plant, now the I and colon are really important here, because one of the problems, very common problems in job search emails and in the old days letters, is what I call the I problem. And that is I this, I this, I this, I this. And the reader's going, yeah, I don't really care. So what? So we have to have a balance between what you're trying to say and what the reader needs. And that's what this format does really well. So one I, and then you're listing 3 accomplishments. Just there's some tentative first words here, but you'd fill them out. I increased, sales by X%, or I initiated a new something or other project, or I developed something. So that those you often come right off your resume, and they're proving that you are good at what you say you're good at. And because this email goes without a resume, you need that little bit of proof in the center. And then my favorite part is at the end, where you personalize your accomplishments. What I'm really good at is, so what I'm really good at as a filmmaker is, I don't know, what I'm really good at is, getting all the different pieces of this intricate puzzle to work together. I don't know, I'm making it up. Or what I'm really good at is accuracy or reviews. I know the something or other market had a something or other. If you need another accomplishment, you can add it there. And then the link to them. I'm certain I could do the same for your company or your organization or your hospital or your nonprofit or whatever it is. And then look at the ending. I'll call you next week to arrange a mutually convenient time for us to meet, or a little softer to I'll call you next week to arrange a mutually convenient time for us to talk. Sincerely. So you're keeping that ball in your court. You're not saying, I look forward to hearing from you, which is kind of a death sentence. You're saying, I'm going to follow up. No resume, right? So again, just a quick review. It has to go to a person, that person by name, that would be your boss at that organization. You pick one of the 2 beginnings. Some people use both of them. That's fine. You prove it through those little accomplishment statements, which are basically problem, action, result. We're going to get to those in a second. And then you personalize it. What I'm really good at is, and you keep the ball in your court. When I learned how to do this format, the gentleman who taught me said, Jean, if you're not going to follow up, don't bother to send it. Just don't bother. You have to follow up. And I'll tell you a quick funny story. So this was pre-email. This is how long ago it was. And I worked on the draft of this, and he covered.
I think Jean has frozen, unfortunately. Are you there, Jean?
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good. You're back.
You
froze. So you were saying this was pre-email, and when you were putting this together, that's the last thing we heard.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just got a thing saying that my internet connection is unstable, like my mind. So sorry about that. So I was hesitant to send this because I wasn't sure. I thought it was a little pushy. And he said, well, look, pick a company you don't want to work for. Let's have fun with this. I said, okay, I don't want to work for an insurance company. And he said, great, well, let's make this even more fun. Let's write to the CEO. So I wrote to the CEO of an insurance company with my beautiful little target letter. This is again pre-email. And he said, you have to follow up. I said, I will, but I know nothing's going to happen. So I waited a couple of days, and before I had to follow up, what happens? My phone rings, and it's the insurance company. And it's the CEO's admin. And she says, Mr. So-and-so wants to meet with you. And I'm like, oh, no. I did not want to meet with him. I did not want to work there, but I laughed after I got off the phone. I laughed really hard because the letter in those days, it had worked. It got him intrigued because nobody does this. So I went in, I blew the interview. It was terrible. But it taught me that this is a really powerful tool if you learn how to use it right. So back to that pie chart, if I did a pie chart for how most of my job searches have, what's worked, I would say targeting is probably of 75 to 80%. Very, very high, much higher than answering ads or recruiters. So pay attention to that. So let's take a couple of minutes, and what I'd like you to do is just work on that very last paragraph, the what I'm really good at paragraph. And this is a fill in the blank, and you have it on page 3 in your handouts. If you don't have your handout in front of you, it doesn't matter. You have it on my screen here, and you can just write, what I'm really good at is blank. I know the something market and how to something. And then you don't have to write out, I'm certain I can do the same for your company. That'll do. But just let's take a minute and have you write that. And then I'm going to ask you to share that with the group if you don't mind. Questions? All right, so take a minute to just draft this. All right, Maria looks kind of ready. Do you want to share, Maria? Are you unmuted?
I am unmuted.
Good. Okay.
Well, it's kind of surprising how hard it is for me to answer this. I mean, just because
I know, I get it.
I mean, because what I feel I'm good at is writing and directing, which is what I was trained for and which I've done professionally. But I think I need to find work in other areas. I've done a lot of writing journalism and producing events, for and particularly for women in film. I'm a good public speaker. I've done speaking in.
All right, so I'm going to stop you a second. So this is good. So you may have to really change this if you have to adjust your charge, your goals because of the market, or but let's just, for the sake of the exercise, assume that you're doing this as a filmmaker, right? So just absolutely to the letter, following this format. What I'm really good at is what? Blank. What I'm really good at, what are we going to say? Filmmaking?
I would say writing and directing feature films, episodic television, and commercials.
Okay, so how about that? What I'm really good at is, did you say writing and directing films? And then episodic, and well, I forgot the rest. But anyway, that sentence is fantastic because that gives us a lot of information. And then I know the what market. What would you call it?
I know the industry.
Entertainment industry, do you call it? Or
yeah, I think you just call it the industry. I know the industry intimately after 25 years of
yeah, don't give them 25 years. You've just shot yourself in the foot.
Old lady.
Yeah, you joined the club. So I know the industry and how to what. Then that could be a lot of different things. How to work with diverse teams, or what would you, I know the industry and how to what?
Bring a diverse group of people together in a collaboration that results in, excellent outcomes.
Yeah. So this is a lesson for everybody. Less is more. I had a boss who used to yell this at me all the time. Less is more, less is more. So don't let this sentence get too long. So I know the industry and how to, motivate diverse teams to blank. Don't keep going, right? Just short, sweet. It's so strong. I'm certain I could do the same for your company, right? It's amazing. So don't let the discomfort of doing this, which is real, stop you from doing it, because this will become can become the answer to, hey, Maria, tell me about yourself, right? You can say this. You're networking. Well, oh, what are you looking for? You can say this. So this becomes a tool you can use in a lot of ways, in addition to actually targeting somebody in your industry. Very, very good. I'm sorry, I don't have a name on the other person who I can see. Who is that down there below you, Carla?
Tina.
Tina. Okay, Tina, do you want to have a go at this paragraph?
Sure, I'd say what I'm really good at is art direction and strategic design. I know the target market. I know your target market and how to position and elevate your brand.
How's that? And I'm certain I can do the same for you. Beautiful. Beautiful. Very nice. Do we have anybody else? Because I can't see the whole screen. Carla, anybody else to?
Lori and Jennifer are also here. I don't see anything in the chat, but Lori and Jennifer, if you wanted to either unmute or type in the chat, go right ahead. I know Jennifer said she was at the ball field, so she was going to keep her camera and probably mic off as well, so we don't hear any of it.
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to go ahead. I'm listening, as Fraser says. If you want to pass, that's always fine. Anybody else want to go? Or are we good?
I think we're probably good.
Okay, thanks, Michaela. So play around with this target format. It's a powerful, powerful format. What you're doing with it is tapping into that unpublished job market. So you're researching the company, you're researching the person. This is where LinkedIn is so wonderful. And then you're reaching out to them. Now, if you had a referral, if I'm going after somebody and Maria knows somebody at that organization and she's helping me, then I could say, the subject line could be referred by Maria so-and-so, or Maria so-and-so suggested I get in touch with you if you need or as and I'm off and running, right? So referrals are awesome, but lots of times we don't get them when we want them. So this gives you a way to introduce yourself in a powerful, powerful way without burdening people with your resume. Be very careful to not send your resume. So if you look at this as, what are the steps? The steps are, you send the email. You wait a little bit. You call and follow up. You're probably going to get voicemail. You call again. You may have a little phone tag back and forth. Eventually, hopefully you get them. Then, or they email you back and say, hey, Jean, could you send your resume? Of course, you're going to send your resume when they ask for it, right? But you don't send it first. And then, as in the story that I told you about Bob, they may say, hey, let's get together for lunch or come in for an interview. And so you're inching them toward meeting with you and hiring you. That's the baby steps that this helps you take. And many organizations are so thankful that you've done this, because you've saved them a huge headache, which is having to advertise and then sort through the mountain of resumes, right? So look at it as you're doing them a favor, right?
And I've already been to Singapore.
And you've been to Singapore, and you know about the noodles. Oh my gosh, that cracked me up so much. So have fun with this, play with it, see what happens. But again, you must do research. It's not one size fits all, and you must follow up. Those are the two musts. And then you'll play with it as you want. All right. So other tools to help you talk about yourself. The PARs, which is the problem, action, result, or there's stars, and we're going to work on these in a minute. Your exit statement, that's why you're no longer with the last company you were with. Or if you're freelance, why you don't want to be freelance anymore, or whatever. A short statement of what you're looking for. This is what we used to in the outplacement industry call your positioning statement. Your competitive edge, which we've worked on. The competitive edge then has to be followed up with an accomplishment story. We're going to get to that in just a sec. Your resume, which we don't have time to work on tonight, but that's got to be strong, clear, good selling document. what you're doing now. So while you're in transition, and I never say out of work, I always say in transition, are you volunteering at the library? Are you learning a new skill? What are you doing, right? Because I mean, sometimes even at interviews, people are asked, what's the last book you read? So as one of my clients said, Jean, I need to be an interesting person. Yes, you do. It helps, right? And it will help you feel better because this is a tough process. References, you want 3 to 5. You want them to be people you trust, and you treat them with great respect, and you always let them know when they might be called. And I like to even give them like a little gift when I land my next job, because they're a critical part of your process. A list of companies, which we'll get to in a minute. I think somebody's in the waiting room, Carla. It's just got a thing. A list of contacts. So who can I talk to? And that should be growing all the time. And then advice, that's another email, which we won't get into tonight, but your target email, which we did get to. So let me just share with you something from my interview book here that I wanted to, just the power of the accomplishment statements. So in my interview book, for all the sample questions, and there's hundreds of them, I always gave 3 answers, which I rate good, better, and best. And I say, why? Why is this a good answer? Why is this better? And why is this best? So here's the question. Why are you interested in this job? So here's the so-so. Your company is close to where I live and you have a good reputation. And then my comment, that's not a great answer, is where you live is not a selling point and good reputation is too general. It could apply to almost any company, and tells the interviewer that you didn't bother to do your research. A little better, I think it's a good fit. You're looking for an administrative assistant who can jump right in and help the office run more smoothly. That's what I'm good at. That's a bit better, because here we have a few specifics, but watch the use of soft phrases like I think. They often raise doubts in the interviewer's mind. And the best answer, from what I know, your purchasing department is under tremendous pressure to keep up with the company's expansion. As an administrative assistant who recently helped XYZ go through a similar process, I'm confident I can make this easy for you, as I'm organized and known for meeting tight deadlines. Hear those strengths there, right? That's the person. So this answer gives the interview solid evidence of the candidate's research, their past work experience, and their strengths, while also answering the question. In other words, the person is saying that he or she would like to work here because the company has a challenge they have met before and are confident they can meet again. So you can see how important in answering questions these PARs or accomplishment statements are, because without them, you're basically saying, well, hire me because I'm smart, hire me because I'm creative, hire me because I'm a good that's not enough. We have to offer proof. Don't forget, you can ask questions anytime. So let's just do a couple of these together if we can. So I'm really good at blank. We saw this in the target email. For example, in my last job, and then that would be problem, action, result. So we've talked about a couple of strengths. So if I'll do one. So if I said to you, well, okay, Jean, what's a key strength? Well, I'm creative. All right. So now I have to ground that in the work I do as a career coach in an outplacement firm. So for example, in my last job, I noticed that many of our clients were not well prepared for interviews. That's a problem, right? Here's action. I created a new interview class called Interview Techniques that could save your life, that gave them the essential skills to interview effectively. As a result, now, what I can't say in my field is as a result, 50% of my clients landed jobs. I don't have numbers, but I can say as a result, people went into their interviews with more confidence and did better, right? So sometimes the result is soft. If you have numbers, awesome. But in my field, I don't have them. I can't say what happened. So that's an example of backing up a strength with proof. Anybody else feel? I'll leave this as optional. Anybody else want to try one, or would you rather not? I can tell Maria's dying too. Does anybody want to try one? All right, I think you got the point of it. So make sure that you create a list of these and make sure you practice them out loud, because just having them on paper isn't enough. You need to really be able to talk them. And don't worry about the words. You know, one of the worst things people do when they prepare for interviews is try to memorize. That's not effective. Just, it's the concept. What'd you do, right? People needed help. I did this. Here's what happened. It's pretty simple. But we've got to get fluent in accomplishment language, because that's what proves we're good at what we say we're good at, right? Questions, thoughts, issues? Or we're good? We're coming along here. Good. So why is a list a better tool than a resume? This list, by the way, is a list of companies where you would like to work. That's what it is. I didn't make that very clear there. So first of all, it's easy to read or understand. There is, I want to work for Electric Boat or whomever. There's no creep factor. By that, I mean, you run into a neighbor and they say, hey, Jean, how's it going? You're still out of work. I hate it when people say that. No, I'm in transition. Rather than saying, would you look at my resume, which then puts a burden on them, and they're like, oh, does she think that I'm going to hire her? Or does she think I know someone? Or what do I do with this thing? You're just saying, I've come up with this list of some companies I'm looking at. Would you mind just taking a quick glance at it? Really easy. It proves you're being proactive. So you're saying, this is where I'd like to work. This would be a good fit for me. It's a work in progress, easy to add, subtract companies as you learn more about them. And it's easy to share in social media. So make sure you have a list of at least 10, 20 would be even dreamier, of organizations where you like to work. Whether you're freelance or full-time, part-time, doesn't matter. This is where you want to be. And sometimes if we're new, either new in an area or if we have to make a career change, we don't even know enough to do this. So that's where we have to network to get help. So when I moved to Connecticut in 2012, I knew a lot about the New Jersey market because that's where I'd worked. I didn't know anything about the Connecticut market, but I networked into a top person in the career field in Connecticut to get to the people that I wanted to, and ended up creating a really fun class called Boomers Back to Work for the Department of Labor. And that lasted for a whole bunch of years. It was fun. But I wouldn't have known to go to that, to the Department of Labor without that. It was actually the EWIB. What is it? Eastern, oh my gosh, the Workforce Development Fund or something. Anyway, that oversees that. So I found the right person through network. Sorry about this visual, but you have a clearer one that doesn't have two things on it. So let's just go through what a diverse schedule might look like. And again, you have this in your handouts. So let's say the first hour from 9 to 10, you check your email and job board. So that's where you get a chance to have your internet fix. Then from 10 to 11:30, you review your networking list or spreadsheet and see where you need to follow up, and you draft the target email for one of the people that you want to connect with. From 11:30 to 12:30, take a break, have lunch, do the laundry, errands, get away from your computer, get outside. 12:30 to 1:30, reach out to 3 new contacts. By saying 3, it gives you specific homework as opposed to, I don't feel like it. That's okay, just do it. Make sure your email or call is specific, be clear about what you want, research and target a company. And then from 1:30 to 2, invest in social media, update your LinkedIn and Twitter accounts, find groups, prepare for interviews, and make sure to practice out loud because you need to hear your own voice, networking and interviewing. And then lastly, the last 15 minutes of your workday, which in my book was an 8-hour workday, I've switched it to a 4-hour workday. Review your progress and prioritize what you must do the next day or the following week. So it's about 4 hours a day, a total 20 hours a week. So when you think about it, 20 hours a week on a job search really isn't that much because most of us are used to working a lot longer. Way back in the 70s, the Department of Labor did a huge survey of people who had been working and then who were in transition or unemployed, as they called them. And they asked them how much time they were spending on their search. And the average from this huge, huge survey was 3.5 hours a week. Now, think about that. That's crazy, right? People who had worked 40-hour weeks minimum were now spending 3.5 hours on their job search. You know, they weren't independently wealthy. They needed to work. And so if you're not spending a good 20 hours a week, chances are not too much will happen. And then when not too much happens, you get discouraged. And then when you get discouraged, less happens. So you need to get yourself into a positive rather than a negative cycle. And, you know, I am not a numbers person, but I like numbers because they don't lie. So keep track of when you work on your job search, because it can feel like you're working on it all the time, but really, maybe you're not, right? And then having a written schedule forces you to diversify. It forces you to try different things and not get stuck on the internet. So questions about a schedule, or anybody have one they use? No? All right. So just a quick little piece before we wrap up on social media. Why do you need it? Really, I think one of the main answers to this is to show you're with it, especially if you're a mature worker, as I like to call myself. You know, if you're not on LinkedIn, people are going to think, maybe this old dog can't learn new tricks. What will it do for you? According to LinkedIn, 60% of employers use social networking sites to research job candidates. Here, this is an interesting career coach, Carrie, Hannon. Here's a list of a number of things of how social networks impact your job search. So know your online identity. In other words, Google yourself, remove any damaging info or images, monitor your friends, review your privacy settings, be active on sites you like, post often, join groups. Groups on LinkedIn are fantastic. Let's say you don't know anything about manufacturing, but you want to work in manufacturing, join manufacturing groups on LinkedIn. You can do it. Help others, add graphics, because we're so visual that if you have a picture, you know, not you in a bikini, but a picture that is relevant to your job search, that's great. And use a professional photo of yourself, again, not the beach shot or the picture of you from the wedding with the other people cut out. AARP, those list a little bit different. 10 ways you didn't know LinkedIn could help you find a job. Make yourself memorable with great stories. Those are your great accomplishment stories, problem, action, result. Focus on where you're going rather than where you've been. So, you know, I can help film companies do X, Y, and Z. Keep it fresh. Get visual, as we just saw. Make yourself accessible. Directly contact hiring managers and recruiters. Well, we know how to get to hiring managers. That's the target. Recruiters is easier. You just send your resume to them. Think of LinkedIn as a search engine. Use it for research. Never say you're seeking new opportunities. Rather, although that's really not so bad. You could say that. I'm just contradicting myself. But clean up your social media profiles if there's anything there that could hurt you. And again, professional picture. Oh, yes, there's also a pandemic. So networking has not been so much in person, isolation. We're covered up with masks. Interviews are done via video. But there's a huge need for problem solvers. So the job market is not dead. And if you can position yourself as the one to help a company suffering because of the pandemic, you're in a great place. And companies obviously need to be creative to survive. This has been very rough on many, many industries. Quickly, just some tips for Zoom interviews. Make sure your head is near the top of the screen so that we see as much of your body as we can. Have a neutral background. Watch your lighting. You don't want light reflecting off your glasses. You have to gesture in this upper body space, which is really weird to gesture up here when we're used to gesturing below. And we're going to practice that before I let you go. Eliminate distractions. So I turn off my cell phone, unplug the other phone, you know, close the door so the dogs can't come in. Try to keep it quiet. and use earphones to enhance the sound. Sounds a little bit better with earphones. Remember, you want to have a plan and stick to it. Pay attention to what's making your phone ring. Use the internet for research and sending out emails. Put yourself on a job board diet, only a few calories a day. Don't let it eclipse your search. Use social media for research to expand your connection and to prove you're with it, and be proactive and target hiring managers. And one last thing, and we're going to do this together. Enthusiasm. People like to help people who are upbeat. So job search tends to make us not so upbeat and to kind of grind us down, but we have to fight that and come across as excited about what we have to offer. Enthusiasm is the gold standard, and it's physical. So we're going to do this together, and you can stay muted. It doesn't matter. I just want to see you. So right now, put your hands up near your head like this. Everybody's got their hands up. Good. So you have this little box to work in, right? We can move up, we can move down, we can move forward a little bit, but this is all we have in Zoom, right? So I'm going to say, keep your hands up if you would, everybody, including Michaela and Carla. So I'm going to say, I initiated a large project, and you're going to do something. You're going to repeat that. Again, it doesn't matter if you're muted or not. And then I want to see your hands doing something, okay? So your hands are going to move in some way to show I initiated a large project. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3. I initiated a large project. Woo! So it's somehow getting bigger, right? Good. And gestures can be slow and elegant. We don't point. We don't count on our fingers. We just keep our hands in a nice open way. All right. So here's our second one. Our sales were down in the first quarter. So get your hands ready in your box. Our sales were down in the first quarter. What are you doing? Woo! Here they go, right? Good. This is really funky, I know, but it works because we pay attention to sound emotion. This is why we're addicted to television. And if we see down, they're going down, we believe it. Where just words. Okay, so this is a differentiator. Sales wasn't talking with marketing. So here's our hands ready to go. And I'm not suggesting any way that you sit like this for Zoom. This is just for an exercise. So that your hands would be out of the way, but then sales wasn't talking with marketing might be the way you do it. So let's try this. 1, 2, 3. Sales wasn't talking with marketing, right? So that's a differentiator. And lastly, this is an emphasis gesture. There was no way that plan could work. 1, 2, 3. There was no way that plan could work. So beautiful. Give yourselves a hand. So gestures are important because enthusiasm comes across physically. We can't say, I'm really excited about this position, and then expect anybody to believe us, right? So posture's up. I'm really excited about this position, and whatever gestures make sense to you. We'll all do it differently, which is awesome. So to recap, you now know why it's a mistake to let the internet take over your search, how and when jobs are found, how to target hiring managers, play around with that target email form, how to diversify your search, and you've created a chart, or you will, as guidance. So search smart, be proactive, use social media, and get the job you want. These are my 2 books. I think you have a link. They're available online through Bank Square Books, but also the library has them. And if you're not in Stonington, other libraries should have them, so you don't have to spend any money. You have on here, as well as on the handouts, my email, my website, my blog. And if you would like to link in, shoot me an email, jb@jeanbaur.com, but please mention the library program, because I get a lot of requests and I don't say yes unless I know who the people are. So if you say, I was at the library session the other night or last night or whenever it was, I'd like to link in, I will say yes. Now we have time for questions, thoughts, anything you want. I am here till 6:15, so I'm all yours.